Welcome to Soul Sisteries. Welcome to Soul Sisteries, where we just had an amazing conversation with Paul and Karen Larson of the Chino Community Theater and Children's Theater.
It's so thrilling to talk with them, longtime friends and mentors, and I truly love these people. But we were just talking about how they've changed so many lives and so humbly. Oh my goodness, they're so humble about all that they've done, and they keep going on about this sense of community, which is real, which is true. But my goodness, this community exists and developed because of the light and the love at the heart of it, which is the two of them and all that they brought about. Amazing people. Here we are with the wonderful Paul and Karen Larson, who are longtime friends, but really, I got to say, they are huge inspirations for me. They have set up a gorgeous model where I live of community, particularly through the theater that they have started in our community, a community theater as it goes, right? It's the Chino Community Theater and the Chino Community Children's Theater that they began 40 years ago, and they're going to tell you that whole story. But they originated that they were both educators. They were both in education, and then out of this and out of that sense of teaching and building community and working together, this wonderful theater was born. So here we are with Paul and Karen Larson. Welcome.
It's great to have you. Good to have you both here.
It's great to be here.
Oh, wonderful. And I know Donna just did a little introduction so everybody can know a little bit about you. I guess I know that part about you, but I don't know as much as Donna does. So I would love for you to just share with us all, if you can, kind of what got you here 40 years later. How did you start the theater? Why did you start the theater? What did that look like?
Well, would you like me to start, Karen? It actually started in the classroom. Karen and I were both elementary school teachers for many years. And I was active with my partners doing theater on our campus. We were doing shows. And as a matter of fact, in 1984, I had just finished up doing a show called the 1890 Music Hall Review with kids from second grade to sixth grade on our campus. And our son, who was quite an athlete at the time, had said, I'd really like to take an acting class. So we signed him up for an acting class with the city of Chino. And at the end of 8 weeks, we went to see the performance. Karen, you want to talk a little bit about that performance?
Yeah, the performance was not anything about acting, really. It was lip syncing to the Sound of Music song as a group.
Oh, dear.
And we were so disappointed.
Yeah.
And Paul said, I could do better than that. And I said, well, why don't you? And that sort of got the ball rolling. Wow. So really, our inspiration was our son and his need to express himself. He was singing. He loved to dance. He had good movement. He was not a bit shy. So we thought, he needs this kind of an outlet besides just doing sports. He wanted to add something else to his plate. He was still very young. And I think he was only 5 or 6 years old when we first did that class. So wow. It was that was the impetus to get us going. And since Paul had been doing sports also with the city, and he had just done this show, he kind of had some connections. He had some connections with Pat McCardle in the city. And so he went down and said, Pat, our son just took this drama class and it was not good. And he said, I know it's not good. And are you guys interested in, doing something for us, that's really acting? And we said, sure. So Why don't you pick it up from there,
Yeah.
Paul?
From that point, we worked with Pat. They got us a location. We ended up putting together a production workshop, would be what we call it now, of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. All the kids that wanted to be in the workshop were involved. We ended up with 10 that were available the whole time. We had two that had scheduling conflicts. And, we worked on the songs. We knew the dialogue. I had done the show, I don't know, 12 years earlier when I was in college, and remembered quite a bit of it. Had our friend uh, do all the piano work for us. We went over to our house with our big old Wallen sack reel to reel and put it all on tape, and painted the set in our front yard and put
Yep.
it on stage at the community building on 10th and B Street. And lo and behold, people showed up.
Oh,
And I
I
want to
love it.
say, I want to stress, even then, we're talking about community. Even then, we had parents supporting what we were doing,
Mhm.
and not only just supporting it by coming, but they helped us with the costumes. They helped us with the set. They helped their kids, learn their parts. And they were an integral part of getting it off the ground.
Yeah.
The
I
city, the
yeah.
city support, which is community right there,
Yeah.
and the parent support.
Yeah.
Those were the two keys right there.
I just love that you saw this need, with your own child, that,
Yes.
okay, here's something that he wants to do. And so you just did it instead of waiting and looking city to city for somebody else to do it. You're like, okay, let's go it. We're going to make it happen, which is amazing.
That is true. I think probably because Paul had that connection already with sports, and we were both living in Chino, and we were both teaching in Chino. So Chino was our home base,
Yeah.
So it just made sense for us to go that route,
Yeah.
And
So
It was go ahead.
I was going to say, so here's the thing, though. You say that, and I understand that the circumstances were all there, but I've been a part of this theater and I've known you for a very long time. And I know there's special sauce in this. There
Mhm.
is. So we are talking about community, hope through community today. And this is a great example. But the special sauce, really, we have to say, is you two and the way that you approach this. Really, you guys have the hearts and souls of teachers. That's who you are. And you have the teacher mindset. And that
Right.
teacher mindset is we're going to support and uplift others for the greater good. I've seen it again and again and again. And that is the undercurrent. That is the support of this institution now that has been around for 40 years and thriving. It would not be this were it not without that little magic that you two put in there. That just has to be said.
Well, that is very kind. I wanted to follow up on that because in February of 84, just before we started the Children's Theater, I had done a community theater production in Claremont. And the theater that we were involved with, that was the last show they were going to do. They weren't going to do anymore. And the year before, another theater had closed down. So two theater groups in the area had gone defunct, and
Wow.
were adults that were looking for homes. So we
Mhm.
finished up the children's theater show. I told the cast about it that I had worked with, and they said, "Well, do you think Chino might want a community theater too?" And I said, "Oh, let's go see."
Yeah.
They said, "Sure." And we got $500 seed money from the Community Center Corporation, which was a place that was trying to get a facility built at the time. But the concept of community that is so important here is that we did not have to rely on it being the Paul and Karen show. It never, ever was the Paul and Karen show, not day one.
Right.
We think with the children's theater in particular, Jim and Julianne Gallegos got involved right from the start, and their daughter was in a couple of shows at the start with the children's theater and the community theater, but just giving of themselves. And then, as you pointed out, Donna, one of the important things is giving people the opportunity to learn something new, to
Mhm.
know that you can do it, give them the confidence to try and do it themselves. Heck, this morning we were out working in the garage in the shop and working on a door panel that's going to be used for the next show coming up. And the director came over and got to use a router for the very first time. Did a little
Oh,
teaching lesson with that
I
and
love it.
cut out that doorway. And he says, "My gosh, it's so clean. It's so much better." I said, "Yeah, we learn these tools." So
Uh,
giving the opportunity for people to
yeah.
find the best in themselves, I think, is a huge part of this.
Well, and that
Yeah.
is another piece of the special sauce, I have to say. So yes, the opportunities are there, but there's a little phrase that we in this particular community have, and we all know exactly what we're talking about. We say, "Well, you got Larsoned," and we know exactly what that means because all of a sudden, not only did you learn that thing that you were really interested in learning, but all of a sudden you're like in charge of it. You're doing it. You're running it because you guys just have this way about you of letting all the
Yeah.
rest of us like really believe in
Yes.
ourselves and that we can do it. And then your trust in us really gives us those wings to do it ourselves. And I know I
Yeah.
personally have flown in all kinds of ways because you've offered that sort of
Yeah.
love and support and guidance. And there are countless people who would say the
Yeah.
same. So I hear what you're saying, but I also have to say, okay, but wait a second. There is something very particular about the two of you and the way you are with each other and the way that you are with the community and the way you raised your family and all of that that creates this special kind of magic
Mm.
here. It's true.
Uh,
Well, we always set out to educate and entertain. So the education part, we felt good about it because we had, we were teachers, we were in the classroom, we knew how to work positively with kids. We had great feedback from parents already and administrators and staff members about how we worked with kids and how we inspired them. So we had a lot of tricks up our sleeves,
Yeah.
so to speak, already
Yeah.
and in that respect.
Yeah.
And then the idea of, we had a family too, so we not only didn't want it to be the Paul and Karen, I mean, we wanted it to be the Paul and Karen show, not because we didn't want it to be special or have ownership in it, but because, we had other stuff in our life and we
Yeah.
wanted it to be community right off the bat. I mean, the very first show we did together, and we did a couple other shows where we were, directed and produced and did a lot of stuff early on. But at the same time, the very second show we did in children's theater was directed by somebody else. And,
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
just helped out. We were just there to kind of facilitate. So
Yeah.
that happened right from the very get-go.
Yeah. Well, and I got to be part of the theater once. Many times watching
Mhm.
performances, but once, almost 30 years ago, when I had a teeny tiny role in the Best Little Christmas Pageant, right? Which was so much fun. And I watched you, Donna, kind of step your toe in and then be 100% immersed, volunteering 40 plus hours a week now. And so I've seen just the hope that you guys have brought to the community, to my own family through this theater, which is pretty amazing. But I guess what I want to know is then what gives you guys hope as you started this theater, as you've continued the theater? What gives you hope and keeps you going?
The connection with everybody, with everyone that's involved, you just keep making these connections with your fellow human beings
Mhm.
and you just watch them bloom, and it's so exciting. You say, oh, so and so is doing this and they're so good at it, and I'm so glad they're a part of it. It just makes our theater even better.
Yeah.
When you connect with others and you are able to nudge them, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe they'll come up to you and just open up and say, hey, I've always wanted to try this.
Go
Here's the
for it.
opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think the
Yeah.
connection is really important with
Mm.
fellow humans.
Yes.
The
Yes.
connection, and also there is a feeling of family that's involved with this community theater, truly a feeling of family with this group. And it becomes a safe place for all kinds of people to be. That
Yeah.
some people are introverts that find a wonderful home, and there are some people that have, had difficulties, kids that have had difficulties in school for
Yeah.
acting out, and finally they find a home to act out, and they meet a director that understands that need to showcase themselves and yet gives them the tool to become
Mhm.
a better speaker, to become very clear, to become focused.
Focused, yeah.
And then that child then turns around and becomes a mentor for another person. And the same thing with the adults. I think of one person, Doug Rumbaugh. I'll mention him. His daughter was in a show. Let's see, when did uh,
Savannah.
Winnie the Pooh come up? Was that 2018?
It was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere. And this was just one of the dads that was uh, trying to figure out what he could do to help out. And so we put a drill in his hand. He says, yeah, I can use this thing. And was watching and learning and asking questions. And as time has gone by, not only did he handle that, but then he was designing sets, he was building sets, he
Mm.
lights, he's directed shows. And we have a number of parents that have found homes that way. We've had people that have truly just walked in off the street saying, what is this place?
Hmm.
Mm.
Said, well, why don't you come in? You can usher for the show. And they say, I didn't know we do live theater here in Chino. And,
Yeah.
they'll go from being an usher to being someone that'll help out backstage to being on stage and then up in the booth doing lighting or something. You just never know what
Yeah.
you might find in yourself as a human being.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I believe that truly for Karen and me both, it's been very important to give that opportunity. It's almost like a pay it forward.
Yeah.
If I can give someone else an opportunity right now to find something new about themselves, because I discover more every day for myself. I am the epitome of a lifelong learner, and
A
I
work in progress. We're
a
all
Uh-huh.
work
works
in
in
progress.
progress.
Hmm.
And if we can give that opportunity to others, then I think
Yeah.
there is a great deal of hope for our society.
Yeah.
Right. It's interesting, isn't it? How, when life has its challenges, as it does, or there are those days which are a little harder, that just stepping into some of that work of uplifting someone else and turning
Mhm.
to them and being mindful, all that that does for yourself, right? And
Yeah.
shifting your mood, your energy, your outlook.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's, helping others or is you're really helping yourself when you do that.
Yeah.
It gives you such a good feeling to
Yeah.
make that connection and to help to think that you've inspired somebody to try something new or to go a different way.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. I remember you stepping into that, both of you, during the pandemic when everything was shut down. All of a sudden, you were starting different workshops online. And I remember specifically the ukulele class that you were running,
Right.
Paul. And that was just, it was okay. So the theater is not open. We can't all be together, but the theater's not stopping. You kept doing all these things for the community and really branching out you didn't have to be in Chino or the Inland Empire. You could be, anywhere and join those classes, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think that's what Zoom has done.
Yeah.
Basically, it's kept it. I mean, even to this day, we had a meeting last night with a community theater, and we had a person from Arkansas who moved to Arkansas, and he was on the Zoom call.
Yeah.
So we had 4 people on the Zoom, and we had a dozen people at the house.
Oh, nice.
And it was really nice to be able to open it up like that. And we did that with Donna came up with her idea with the Readers Theater. So we did that. I did a sewing class. So I was teaching people how to make pockets and stitches. And we did Shakespeare. We did a bunch of stuff during the pandemic. And some of it has continued as far as the connections have continued.
Yeah.
And that, we made, that was hope in a very dark time for everybody.
Yeah. And I think if we look back at all that we did during that time, I mean, we were robust and thriving throughout all of that shutdown. We certainly were not shut down, though the building, the building was empty.
Exactly. We even had the stuff going on in the parking lot.
Yes.
We had tap dancing out in the parking lot. We
had a show showing on the back of the wall and people parking in their cars and spaced out. I mean,
that's right.
We really outdid ourselves. And it wasn't just Paul and me. Again, it was the community.
It was everyone
together. It was everybody.
Yeah. Well, the show must go on, right? So
I loved the marquee at that time with the message. It's still intermission.
Yeah, it was a long one. So you both were elementary school teachers. So growing up, did you aspire to be teachers? Did you aspire to be in the theater? What was your aspiration growing up? I'm curious.
I always wanted to be a teacher.
A teacher.
Yeah. I grew up in a family where I had older brothers and sisters that were quite a bit older than me. And then there was a 10-year gap, and then my brother and me came along. And so I was always like the babysitter aunt who was like just a few years younger or a few years older than my nieces and nephews. And so I just sort of fell into that routine of caretaker and teacher.
Yeah.
And so it was a natural fit for me.
Yeah.
The way
mine was a different route. I thought I was going to be an electrical engineer and work on the space program. I was very good at math and science. And I found that I much preferred working with people than sitting in a lab constantly, although I enjoyed it very much all through high school, 4 years of electronics, and got to design some pretty amazing things. I wish I had kept them or had some good photos of them. But once I got to college, I found out that I really liked working with people. So I set myself up for education and government. So I did my internships in city government and worked with the county, and was all set to go actually work for Ruben Ayala up in Sacramento one summer, and it ended up falling through. But all the way through, I did not know I was going to be a teacher until I had graduated. I had been accepted to Georgetown in government, and I decided, no, I'm going to stick around here and become a government teacher. Well, I taught American government over at Claremont High School in my last student teaching experience, but then landed a job here in Chino where Karen had already gotten a job, and we loved it here. It is a wonderful home for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never know.
No, you don't know.
That's so beautiful. So you both have such a bright outlook. people who know you, people who meet you, they are absolutely touched by the warmth that you both exude. And I mean, we can all agree that, Karen is walking sunshine everywhere she goes, right? So, what is it? What is it in you that allows you to sort of live that perspective and live that way? Because you, like all of us, you've had many a hardship in your life. You've had losses, you've had challenges. We all do. That's the
Yeah.
human experience, right? And yet you do maintain this sense of fellowship and camaraderie and positivity. What is it that does that for you?
Well, I'll share. One of the first things would be the attitude of my dad.
Mhm.
My father was a fellow that always said yes. When there was an opportunity to serve or be a steward for something, he said yes. And his best example was, I'll keep this brief, but he went active again in the Korean War during the Korean conflict. He had been in World War II, had served at Guadalcanal, got done there and said, "What do you want to do, kid?" And he says, "I want to fly." So he became a pilot and served, and World War II finished. And then during the Korean conflict, he re-upped, went to North Carolina, and they said, "We have a newfangled thing called a helicopter. Anybody want to learn to fly it?" And put his hand up right away. And so he says, "Okay, you 100 guys are going to go over there and learn how to fly these new helicopter things." And then they were doing tests that were physical tests to find out how to do it. And loading it up with 500 pounds and seeing if we could lift 500 pounds and then 1,000 and 1,500 and 2,000. And okay, we're not going to put 3,500 pounds on this because it won't get off the track. And trying to land on an aircraft carrier and a helicopter, does it work? So he went through all that experience.
Wow.
And then they called the guys together again and divided them in two and said, "Okay, you 50 are going to Korea and you 50 are staying here in the States to find out more about how these things work." And he ended up being able to stay in the States and learned how to be a very good helicopter pilot. And then when the conflict ended, when the United States pulled themselves out of that, um, the best pilot, as he said, was heading to Los Angeles to work for LA Airways. And he asked the guy, "Do you think they have any jobs for me?" He said, "I don't know. Why don't you go find out?" And so he went and picked up my mom and my two older brothers and drove to Southern California with no idea what he was going to do except go knock on the door and say, "I want to be a pilot." And sure enough, he got to fly with LA Airways for about 12.
My goodness,
Wow.
what an entrepreneurial
Yes.
spirit.
Yeah.
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 So I learned from that, and I will say yes to a lot of things.
I can see that. That makes perfect sense. Knowing you
Yeah.
and seeing, yeah, I can see that makes so
Yeah.
much sense.
And I can share it's the same with my two older brothers. I've lost my younger sister and brother, but my older brother and sister, my older brothers are of the same ilk. They serve on boards of directors and they volunteer in their community. And by doing that, you get the gift and joy of being a part of it. And our community benefits from ourselves participating in it.
Yeah.
Which then comes back and feeds you
Right.
also, right? That
Yeah.
robust community.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's something that so many people, the people who aren't doing that work, are missing out on. They think that life is too busy. I have all these things going on. I don't have time for that. But the reality is if you can make time for that, it comes back to you so many times more than what you give, and that you just, no matter what it is, if it's community theater, if it's, the animal shelter, if it's, working with children somewhere, volunteering in the
Mhm.
kids' classroom, whatever it is, that
Yeah.
comes
Right.
back to you and just really feeds you. So as I listen to you guys talking, your father sounds very inspirational also. I'm curious, who inspires you today?
Oh,
Where do you get
Mhm.
inspiration?
gosh. I'll tell you, watching our children with their families, I think is one of the greatest inspirations I have right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ways that they approach parenthood and their jobs.
All different.
Our son Jeff also went into teaching. He works at University of Washington in theater, and to see what he's done at NYU and at Hamilton College and now at UW is just inspiring. One of those
Mm,
people
He's amazing.
that does a beautiful job of creating community. Uh,
Mhm.
mm,
he has been in charge. He and two of his friends, when they were in New York for years, took over a program called Catch, which was a great opportunity for people to showcase new songs, or if they're working on a show or a dance or something, they could put up a 10-minute piece and get feedback on it from the audience. They ended up winning an Obie Award for the work
oh,
they were doing. And last 2 weekends ago, 2 Saturdays ago, they put on one more catch at a location that's closing shop, and they had 250 people show up and had a dozen performances that went on, and it just brought the house down.
oh,
It was
In New York City, this is.
in New
wow.
York. He went back
Yeah.
and did that, and they've done
Oh,
couple out on the West Coast now, and because everybody, his three buddies, one's in New York, one's in
mm,
Asheville, and he's in Seattle, and yet they were able to collaborate, and he
yeah,
stayed with that. And our daughter Jessie, you both know of, that is teaching high school theater and
yeah.
touching the hearts of many kids that may not have ever thought about doing
Mm,
theater. And our
yeah.
daughter Jenna, who got into the culinary arts and is now raising her three kids and volunteering at the school where her kids attend, they just inspire us. They
Mm,
inspire me. And
And they're all so different, which
yeah.
is which is one of the things that I grew up being exposed to. I grew up in science and mind, and so the idea that we're all spiritual beings having this human
Mm,
experience. And so when you look at each person with those eyes and with that
mm,
thought in mind, it it changes you because they're not separate from you. They
mhm,
are, one with you in some way. You have that connection.
mhm.
And so what is their journey going to look like,
Yeah.
and so that's why, of course, why we get so excited about our own kids, but we also do that with like Sydney Reyes,
Mm,
or kids in the theater, or Sebastian Ogeen. I mean, these kids are
Mhm.
just amazing, and
mhm.
to watch them blossom and grow,
Yeah.
talk about giving you hope for the future, or for our
Yeah.
civilization. Those are the kinds of inspirations we get, not
Yeah.
all around. It's all around us.
Yeah.
Dawn is an inspiration.
Aw.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Definitely.
I agree.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I want to ask you, Karen, in particular,
mhm,
because I want to dig in a little bit more also to your journey and
mhm,
your outlook.
mhm,
Because knowing you, I know that you had a profound loss when you were a young girl,
mhm. Yeah.
and it changed your life. And yet you've maintained this very open outlook and
Mhm.
perspective, and that has ignited this much broader sense of community. And can you speak to that a little bit? And what is
Sure.
it that gave you
You know,
that?
I, and my mom and dad were both very inspirational to me, even though I lost my dad when I was 10. And that was a shock because I was daddy's girl. I mean, we would get up early. He would explore all kinds of stuff with me, very, spiritual things and just what he was thinking about. He didn't treat me like a 10-year-old, he treated me like a fellow human being. And so I learned so much from him. And growing up in Science of Mind, it's a very positive religion. I mean, it's not even a religion, it's a philosophy or a way of life. I like to look at it that way more than quote unquote religion, because that always kind of has a negative connotation these days. But it's the idea that there's several little catchphrases. What you think is what you get. So what are you thinking? Mind your mind, pull out those weeds. Those are just things that your mind came up with. You don't need them, just like a garden. And look for the good and praise it. I've always had that philosophy in my classroom and with kids. You could have a row of kids lined up and maybe one is looking at you and doing what you want, to get into the classroom, and you just hit upon that one child, and call them out and say, instead of saying, shh, quiet, turn around, keep your hands to yourself, blah, blah, blah. Those are all negative things. And guess what? You're giving them great attention for being negative. So instead of that, say, gosh, I really appreciate the way you're looking at me, and you're standing so not facing forward, and you're ready, listening, ready to go in, and those kind of things. If you focus on those things or anything that you want to grow, then it grows. And if you keep focusing on what's wrong rather than what's right, you get a lot of wrong stuff. What? There's another one. Here comes another one. The universe always says yes. So no matter what you put out there, you think this? Oh, okay. Well, here's more of that. So those are just a few of my little things that I live by, that I grew up being exposed to. And that was, more from my dad than my mom. But my mom, she was inspirational. She was, lost her husband at 50, had two little kids, a fifth grader and a fourth grader, and went back to work, went back to college, got certificates, and ended up working until she was 70 and just blossomed. I just watched her blossom and become more of herself. Talk about stepping out of the box. She really did it. And yet we always had wonderful Christmases, wonderful family gatherings, all those kinds of things that she really made sure that we had everything we needed. We never, lacked for anything, yet I'm sure she was pinching pennies all the way.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing from both of you is that you both really had profound models in your life of people who went forward, had the obstacles, and found a way, just kept going and found ways of exploring and doing what inspired them, filled them up, kept showing up, kept making it happen. And certainly that's, true of the both of you. You two are Energizer bunnies who keep going and going.
Yeah, when I dealt with a couple of physical things. I had like a subdural hematoma that I had to have removed, that I actually lived to tell the story about, and that was pretty traumatic. And then I dealt with cancer during the pandemic. I had lymphoma, and looking at it as not a curse, but as a blessing and something I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to grow out of it. I'm going to not so much beat it, but I'm going to learn from it
Yeah.
and incorporate it into my life. And Paul was probably not probably, he definitely was my biggest cheerleader and my angel. He stood by my side. I mean, talk about rock solid. I mean, that just our relationship even more close than it already was.
And watching from the outside, again, I mean, I was not part of your lives during that time, but I definitely saw from the periphery, you did that all with such grace. And I guess I kind of want to know, and I think other people might want to know, this idea of like, well, the universe always says yes, so I just always think positively and I just live in this positive, sunshiny state of mind. That is what I see of you, but I'm curious, is there like a battle sometimes inside of you? Is there ever this doubt that, well, I know the universe says yes, but maybe this is the one time it's not going to say yes, you know? I'm curious about that. Is there,
or
is
what
it
is
always,
this? What is this nonsense that's just shown up? I didn't think this into being.
There again, you have a little monkey mind that throws in all the doubts and insecurities. We all deal with that, but that you have to mind your mind and get rid of that stuff.
Yeah,
out of there.
Yeah, when those things come up,
that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Diana, when those things come up, you acknowledge them, you know they're there.
Yeah.
And for me, I can set those aside for right now and focus on the task at hand.
Yeah.
What needs to be done? Because some of those things are very large, as we know.
Yeah.
There are events that happen in our lives and the people that are listening. We can each point to one or two or three or maybe even five that could have taken us to very dark places. We've lost family members because of it.
Yeah.
But the choices that we make on the paths that we want to follow are our choices still.
Yeah.
So even when things get rough, there are times that you can work on it for yourself, and with the great people that are around you today that you can consider friend and family members, that you can say, I'd just like to talk for a little bit. Could you just need someone to listen? Those are some of the times when you can let go of those dark moments. Yeah. Share them and release them, and then go back to what you can do. It's it's the concept for me of being able to shine a little bit of a light. If I can shine a little bit of a light, then I'm doing some good. And if the person next to me and the person next to them and the person on my right and left, if everybody's shining a little light, pretty soon it's looking pretty good where we are.
Which just brings us back to that community. It's in building the community. And then that community is also there when the times are hard. You've got that network to rely on.
The theater community was amazing. The lanes, every time I went in for a treatment, there'd be some little basket on my front door with a blanket and a book or some pajamas or a candles or something to munch on, or, so thoughtful and so appreciated, so much appreciated. And the people in your lives, your family and your friends, they just uplift you. So you are lifted up above that problem, and you have a different perspective. You can look down on it and say, okay, you can kind of get a handle on it a little bit better if you have that support community.
Right.
Yeah. And Diana, to make a point, it does not discount it. It's not to discount it. It's just, as Karen said, to maybe rise above or move away from it. It's not to ignore it and not to discount it, but I'm not going to stay there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we're talking about here and why we're doing this podcast. It's this whole hope through idea that
Mhm.
that all of these things do exist, and we don't pretend that they don't, and we feel all that we feel, and we also make certain choices, and we find that hope through whatever it is, whether it's action or dance or surrender or community, as we've been talking about.
Ukuleles.
Yeah, ukuleles. Yeah,
Ukulele,
music.
oh, through ukuleles. Fountain
Mhm.
Dubuque, everyone.
We
Yeah.
have tonight. Tonight we have
There you
ukulele
go. Everybody come on down. So here, let me ask you this though. You two, you have this community didn't just happen. You didn't just magically plop into this wonderful community. You were very intentional about building it. Not that you worked to create the community, but you worked to create the space for community. Yeah. So
Yes.
if you were to go back to your, those 10, 12, 13-year-old selves that you once were, what do you think they'd say and think about what you've created and where you are today? What would be their perspective?
My 10-year-old self would say, "What? What? You're not going to be surfing?
Mhm.
You're going to be living at the beach?"
Yeah, that's true. I do miss the beach.
uh,
Yeah,
Well, you're
but
not
at
that
the
far
same
from it.
time,
I'd say that was quite a journey that you've had so far, Karen.
Yeah.
Quite a journey, and we're happy. I mean, we talk about it. We just talk about it the other day. We just said, "What a great life we have.
Mm.
We really do."
Hmm.
And
It's beautiful.
because of choices, but because of who we surround ourselves with.
Mhm. The community, your
Good
community.
peeps.
Mhm.
Good peeps.
Yeah.
and some of the choices that we've made as we've become adults and then become even more um mature along the way. I can share that on my 30th birthday, the gift I gave myself was the permission to be quiet.
Mm.
You can go ahead and be quiet and listen for a while, Paul. You don't need to share your opinion on everything. It's
Wow.
one of the greatest gifts I've given myself.
Wow. Interesting.
He was
Yeah.
kind of a know-it-all for a while.
Yeah.
I was.
Because
Yeah.
he knows a lot. He did
He
know
knows
a
a
lot,
lot.
and
Yeah.
he just wanted to share it.
But
Yeah.
listen, to
Didn't
have
realize
that understanding and that wherewithal at 30 is pretty
Right.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know about you all, but I always say I'm going to live well into my hundreds. I've said that since I was little, and I warn my kids all the time that they're with me for many more years. So at the end of this journey, however long it lasts,
Right.
well into your hundreds, because you've got such a strong community behind you,
Hmm.
how do you want to be remembered? What's the legacy you want to leave behind?
I think that he cared. He cared.
Well, that one's already done. I promise
Yeah,
you. That is
that,
how you are
you know.
seen and understood now. we
And just
know that.
she brought joy into my life
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
some way.
Yeah. And so important, especially when there's talk in the world about, is empathy a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
Well,
I'm here to say it's 100% a
course.
good thing.
Always
and
a good
to
thing.
be,
Not
yes.
even a question.
Yeah,
It's
no.
like this. It's like this whole DEI thing. Diversity, yes. Inclusion, yes.
Equity,
Equality,
yes.
yes. I mean,
Love
They
and
all-
fellowship and welcome, and these are
yeah.
all always
All
good
sound
things.
great.
That's what makes us humans
Yeah.
and humanity. That's
Yeah.
all the good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Passion, yes.
Mhm.
Love, yes.
So here's
Yeah.
a little theater moment that Paul and Karen, you'll both appreciate. And you've not seen our little current show yet, which is we're doing
Friday
Cool
night.
House Rock Live once again. We've done it before a couple of times, but here it is again. And given the current consciousness. There's, some
Right.
challenges out there in our world right now. There
Right.
comes a moment in our show when the kids are singing The Great American Melting Pot. And we've got our little one who throws on a Statue of Liberty costume and stands on a box with a flashlight and a peachy folder. Right? And all the rest of the cast pull out little international flags and they circle around singing about lovely Lady Liberty and about, liberty and immigrants, what good ingredients. And you can hear every performance, there are gasps and tears in the audience as people share that moment of remembering, oh, yes, this is who we are. This is who we are, and we are community, and we do belong to
and that's the
other.
consciousness we want to add fuel to grow. I mean, we want to grow that consciousness.
Yeah.
And you do.
Yeah.
You both.
And
you
to
have
see
to do it in your own way, in your own little way, 1,000 little lights, like Paul said. We have the light. So if we're, there's strength in numbers.
I'm curious, and speaking of numbers, and you probably don't have these numbers, but I would love to know how many kids have been involved in the children's theater, how many families, and to have those numbers over 40 years, and then to look at
our education numbers.
Yes, and then
the adult theater, there's adults and children alike.
But this started with that little. I think it was your son. You said Jeff was his name, right? Jeff is his name.
Yeah.
And that he wanted to act. And so you said, yeah, let's do this thing 40 years ago. And now here he is bringing this to so many people in Washington and New York and wherever else he's been. And you just think of all of them.
In Ontario,
Yeah. And so you think of this one, Paul, you talked about that flashlight. And if you can just turn on the light a little bit and somebody else joins you, and to just think of how many kids have been impacted in the last 40 years and how that's rippled out from each of them going out into their communities and the world and continuing to be this light. It's
and the skills they learn are theater skills are not just applicable to theater. They're applicable, they're life skills. So being able to stand up and present yourself, or being comfortable doing that, being able to listen to others and wait for your cues. So there's a focusing, working together for, a complete show. I mean, the list goes on. How to move, there's so many pluses to theater.
Yeah, all of it.
That enrich your life and make it easier for you to go forward. So just giving kids those skills and that confidence building that it has, and it's okay to take risks. And it's and we create that safe environment for them to do that, and then they can do it out there in the real world. Not just in the theater world.
Well, we're aware that we've been keeping you talking for a long time, and we should probably we'll jump into our little rapid fire questions now. How about that? Easy questions, and just first thing that comes to mind, you throw it on out there. And maybe one at a time.
But I think we want to hear from both of them, right? So when we ask, perfect.
Okay.
So here's a fun one. So, baseball, you're the pitcher who walks out to the mound. What is your walk-in song? Or wherever you are, what's your walk-in song?
Thus Sprach Zarathustra.
There you go.
Okay.
Planet of the Apes.
Oh
my gosh. I am not good thinking of this stuff like this. Let me see.
I know what your song is. You think of another one, but when I think of you, it's Walking on Sunshine. That's your song.
Yeah, something positive and fun. There you go. You thought of my song.
Oh, no.
We're walking on sunshine.
It's so new.
It is.
Feel good.
It's a good one. Well, we'll let you have that. Donna helped you out there. But what book changed you?
Let's see.
While she's thinking, I'll share Alice in Wonderland.
Mm.
As a boy and a teen, I read that every year and picked up something new each time because
Ooh,
it
That's a fun.
was a
I
very
love
important
that.
book in my development.
I love
It's a
that.
layered book.
Yeah.
I did my college thesis on Alice in Wonderland.
Mm.
The first book that I just absolutely loved was The Secret Garden. I just
Ah,
loved
yeah,
that book.
a good one.
Yeah.
Gorgeous book. All right, what movie lives rent-free in your brain?
Princess Bride.
Ah,
Let's see. My Big Fat Greek Wedding is always a good one, or Miss Congeniality. Those are my two go-to laughter.
I could see that. I could see that. What did you love doing as a kid that you still love doing today?
Taking a hike.
Mm.
Yeah, walking in the redwoods or in the mountains or on the beach.
I love when you share your pictures of your adventures like that. It's always nice to see those
We still do
travels.
that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you guys have a lot of adventures. What in your world is lighting you up right now?
I think getting ready for a big trip to go see all our grandkids, and we're going to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
goodness.
Coming up in July.
beautiful.
Joy to you all.
My
Congratulations.
choice
Kind of
would have
lighting
been
us up right now.
my choice would have been our grandkids as well. They're just joys for us.
Yeah.
The kids
I've only
aren't
met
bad.
one.
The
Yeah.
kids aren't bad.
But,
The grandkids are something.
yeah,
Yeah.
the grandkids are great, and they're all
Yeah.
so different and so much fun.
Yeah. Oh, they're very cute. Yeah.
They are.
Mhm.
Okay, so what color is hope?
Can I pick rainbow?
You can. You can.
Because
Everything.
the world is a rainbow.
Yep.
My color would be green because it continues to grow.
Yes, I like that. What does hope sound like?
Laughter.
That's a great choice. I think the best one would be the final movement from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. That is my hope.
Wow, I love that
Yeah,
answer.
strong. Yeah.
All right, so complete the statement. Community is
Family.
Community is where I want to find myself.
Yeah.
nice.
How about connection? Connection is
Connection is community. We're going in a circle here.
Connection is making yourself available mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Beautiful. The meaning of life is a great movie, but not than that.
It's 42. We know that.
12, right? It's still a line from Fools. 12.
No, that was 17 in Fools.
Oh, 17. I thought it was 12.
That could be the meaning of life.
The meaning of life. I don't know. We're ageless spiritual beings and having a human adventure. So we just are here to learn and grow and connect.
Yeah. Being a
Growing and
part of
connecting.
something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll wrap it up with hope. Hope is what?
Turning your dreams into reality.
Yeah. Hope is that feeling inside of you that inspires you to move forward in a positive way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
be your best.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Well, you wonderful to beautiful Paul and Karen Larson. I love you so much, and I'm so
Wow.
grateful for you. Thank you for spending time with us now and sharing your light and your hope with us. You've built an extraordinary community, and I will say to anyone again,
Yeah.
the reason this community exists as it does is because you two started it in the way that you started it, with the love that you started it with.
Thank you.
Can you share then, talking about the community and community theater, can you share with everybody where they can find the theater, where they can find y'all and the work you're doing? Is there a website? Is there?
There is.
Mhm.
ChinoCommunityTheater.org.
And
And
childrenstheater.org.
.org, yeah.
Theater with an
Wonderful.
R-E.
R-E.
Yes.
Yeah.
Theater with
And
the
you'll
R-E
find us on
because
Facebook.
we're, you know,
Oh,
classy.
Perfect. So the two websites and on Facebook as well.
Facebook,
Facebook
Insta.
and Instagram.
Awesome.
Instagram.
Yeah, and I will just say again, I've only been really involved in one production and on the sidelines in a couple of others. But if anybody is in Southern California anywhere, it's a theater that they should go visit, even if they don't have children performing in the theater. It is an
Yeah.
amazing place to be.
And you think of it as
after
children because
Donna's-
through I've done so much there, but
Yeah.
there's adult kids
yes.
theater as well, which is
Right. I was just going to
and-
say, after Donna's fabulous show closes this weekend, then we gear up for Little Shop of Horrors, which
Ooh,
will
fun.
be another fun show.
Right,
They're all fun. All of them
Yeah.
are fun.
They
Yeah.
are.
right. You guys have any? Just real quick, do you have any idea how many shows have been done in those 40 years? I've heard the number, but now I don't remember it.
Yes, we're at, I think it's 234 community theater productions and about 178, 179 children's theater productions.
Amazing.
Wow.
And countless summer camps and classes,
Yes.
workshops and cabarets and
Thousands.
events.
Zoom classes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is just the beginning. You're only 40 years into it. So,
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
It
right.
all started with a handshake.
And we were
Yeah.
just babies when we started it.
yeah. Oh my
Amazing,
goodness.
you guys. Thank you so much for taking this time with us.
For
We
sure.
so appreciate you and love you so much. Go out and have some fun.
Yes. Go play the
Thank you.
ukulele.
For having us on the Soul Sisteries.
Thank
Soul
you.
Thank you.
Sisters.
Yeah, exactly what I was going to say.
Yes.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
giving us this opportunity
Oh,
to share.
we're
So
blessed.
grateful.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for joining us today on Soul Sisteries.
And thanks for sharing stories with us. We'd love to hear your stories as well and keep the conversation going, absolutely keeping the hope going. So we're really hopeful that you'll connect with our guests as well who have great stories to share. Go ahead and follow them in various social media platforms or live venues, wherever it is that they're performing and sharing what they do.
We would love to have you follow us on all of our social media platforms, subscribe and rate, as that will help us get our message of hope out to others.
Thanks for listening to Soul Sisteries.